Yes, we can now move on to the third session and the questions and answers. The coordination will be held by Dr. Markakis, Mr. Winterbottom. First, introduce you to Dr. Ruben Sedlar, who received his PhD degree in electrical engineering from the Faculty of Electrical Engineering of the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia in 2010. He is currently an assistant professor at the Faculty of Electrical Engineering, and his work focuses on internet technologies and protocols, quality of service and quality of experience in fixed and wireless networks, and applications of distributed sensor networks in domains of infrastructure monitoring, e-health, and emergency systems. I can give now the floor to all three of you, all of our panelists, and we can address the questions that we have in the chat.
Okay. Thank you, Dimitra. The first question, I think it's most related to the standardization part that we are doing now and with an update that we'll have. So can PEMEA support delivery to a SIP environment of calls other than voice? As an example, video, real-time text. I will give the floor to James, that he's working on that. And
yeah, so that's interesting. So there are approaches where that can be done. And if we look at least one of the deployments that I know Everywhere has been working on for some time, essentially what they do is they have created as part of their PEMEA interface module, or their PSAP interface module, which is the module that interfaces the general PSAP call taking type side of things with the PEMEA network. They have what they refer to as a SIP gateway, which essentially just joins the PEMEA rooms and then initiates an outbound invite to the equipment in the call taker environment or in the PSAP call taker queue system, so that we can in fact support video and RTT in that mechanism. Yes, that's the answer to your first question. And the next question is, are there any devices apart from mobile phones supported for PEMEA, e.g. Braille readers? That's an interesting question. PEMEA doesn't actually define where the application runs or what the application looks like. What it defines is the protocols that run between a node called the application provider node and the PSAP interface module. And so your AP, and I know that Everywhere has an API for that, and I know that Beta 80 have an API for theirs, and I dare say that there'll be others that come along soon that have their own APIs as well. And so any device that you have that can implement that API from an application point of view can be supported. So that could work quite well with Braille readers. I know that Everywhere have certainly done things with apps that run in browsers and that will run as standalone apps, and they've also looked at interfaces between other commercially available solutions to be able to initiate things through the PEMEA network where those applications have been running on WebRTC and therefore don't want to inject into the standard public switch telephone network over, say, SIP trunks or something like that. Does that answer your question?
I think also this implementation, I can add it, so also showing the ability to integrate not only, let's say, Braille readers, but also even in Internet of Things sensors inside the emergency hub. And this is, let's say, a value, additional value that PEMEA can add. Okay, let's move to the next question.
Well, I just want to make sure that's addressed Jaime's question.
Yes, so that answers my questions. Just to clarify though, so obviously the support can be supported, but as of the moment, do you know of any, just an example, Braille readers or other non-mobile environments that are currently there, current solutions?
Certainly non-mobile are being considered and being looked at and used. Braille, not so much at this point that I'm aware of. If that's something that you have a particular interest in, I can share my my PEMEA Consortium address with you after this, and I'm quite happy for Evangelos to share that with you, and we can have some further discussions around what might be possible there, because obviously disabilities are not, you know, one hat fits all, and therefore you can look at all of this stuff on your scrunched up little, you know, 5-inch or 10-inch or whatever it happens to be mobile phone. But for a lot of people, this is going to be their primary means of emergency communication. It's not necessarily going to be on a mobile phone. You're quite right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's move to the next question, because the time is flies. Any edge spec specification which does define in stage 3 level and PEMEA API for major over-the-top applications such as WhatsApp?
Right. So if you look at the PEMEA architecture, it defines the connectivity between the app and the PEMEA network through a node called the application provider. And it is very clear about what the communication is from the application provider through the PEMEA network, both in terms of the initial signaling and in terms of what the multimedia communication protocols are after that. So we have a range of TSs that we went through that support that. It leaves the interface between the AP and the application undefined. And it does that for a number of reasons. The main reason was that when PEMEA was first coming out, there were already a bucket load of emergency apps on the network or available across Europe, but they were all largely localized. And they all provided different functionality with their own APIs. And so when we brought PEMEA in, we didn't want to upset that, because if you try and introduce something that says, well, you've got to change all of your apps now to support this mechanism in this way, it's not going to work. So we left that API undefined and basically said, you need to do whatever it is that you want to do, but coming out of your AP, you need to look like this. And so what's happened is that absolutely the people that have developed APs have got detailed APIs that run along those lines. I know from experience that the Devryware one is quite sophisticated. I also know that the Devryware interface from the PIM into the CAD environment is quite sophisticated, and there's been quite a lot of discussion about bringing both of those interfaces into the PEMEA Consortium and having them well documented and published in that fashion. I'll leave that up to Bertrand and people as to whether or not that's something that they wish to continue to pursue. But absolutely, we would start with those interfaces moving into or doing something within the PEMEA Consortium first to ensure that members of the consortium were happy and comfortable with those things before looking to move those into ETSI to get your stage 3 level defined APIs as you're talking about there. We do think that it's important to get specifications defined and standardized. At the same time, we want to make sure that when we do that, that those specifications are well supported, well thought out, and we know that they actually work before we take them into ETSI. From experience across a range of standards organizations, the more mature the thing that you take in and the better you can demonstrate that it works, the faster your transition through those particular standards organizations. And for anybody here that's been involved in standards, if you can get something through in 12 months or slightly more, you're doing pretty well. Pierre, does that kind of answer the question?
Okay, we move to the next question because the time will not be enough. Of course, everybody can send an email to the email address that they can see, and we can, let's say, take it offline afterwards, and we will be replying also the questions that will not have time. Where are these multiple deployments? Dan Rata from STS is asking. And I will give, I can say that at the moment, PEMEA is live in Italy and in Finland, I think Romania is progressing. We have also Urban that he is working in the
Slovenia, yeah. I think it's 5 countries right now at various stages of the deployment. Some of them have it rolled out completely. Some of them have it like just in pre-release version. But I think the number is 5. Maybe James can correct me if he knows it.
I was hoping that Bertrand would correct that actually, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's multiple. Does that answer your question there?
all right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's move to another question by Pierre Courbon. Can you think that the European DMA that may force major over-the-top to develop interoperability of emergency communication service, even non-number-based apps?
I personally think that that's likely. I mean, if we look at the size and the number of users that are using non-number based apps today, like a few of the ones I talked about earlier, and we can even move that into enterprise level spaces. So we could start to look at things like Zoom, we can look at things like Slack, we can look at things like Microsoft Teams, which none of which necessarily have to have numbers associated with them. You know, the size and the number of users that are using those sorts of solutions now vastly outnumber the number of calls going through traditional operators in the sense of going through their core network. So I don't see that there's, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball and say it's going to happen in 6 months, but I think that it's an imperative that it does occur. And I think that the EC is very much aware of this. Does that answer your question?
Okay, let's move again.
Yeah,
because we have
the next one is let me take the next one. It's pretty long one. So
Okay,
just to clarify, PEMEA has like, it used to be pan-European mobile emergency application, but it's not really just pan-European. It's global, and the standard works just as well with any country. So basically anyone can join. So actually we're thinking of removing the Europe. It's not pan-European only. So yes, Ricard, Luca, you can join, anyone can join. And the first step would be to join the consortium to get to see the next steps and the flow of how to proceed with joining. And yes, there are some technical requirements. You should basically decide what kind of a role you want to have with regard to the either be an operator, which means that you operate the network and allow your apps to join. PSAPs are going to need the integration on the PSAP side, of course. So there's a bunch of things that need to be done actually to plug the country into the PEMEA, but it's all well specified. This is the main point. So basically, everyone can join, and it's the steps are pretty clear. So connect with us and we'll help you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question from Pierre Courbon. Is the delivery you are describing to SIP environment based on existing standard WebRTC Gateway defined by 3GPP? And I will give back to James that he's pushing the standardization.
Yeah, so at this point, no, it's not. It's based on some implementations again that we did as part of one of the EC projects. At the moment, that is still not mature enough to cover all of the SDP types at once, in that it's basically aimed at one particular media type. We are looking at a mechanism to improve that so that we could support them all. And so the aim again will be to get that published through the PEMEA Consortium first, make sure that we're comfortable with it, and then move that into the MTEL environment to support that, since it's a PEMEA mechanism to support that. It will be based on PEMEA protocols inbound. Does that help you, Pierre?
All right. And the last is how many members does PEMEA Consortium have and how many work directly on the specification? This answer, I can answer, let's say, this question. The PEMEA Consortium was established as an NGO this December, so we are now reinitiating the process of adding the friends of PEMEA Consortium as members. So we will submit it, let's say today we had the registered over 80, let's say, members. So this will be also try to be question and see if we can, if they would like to join the part of the PEMEA Consortium. And the specification, it's part of the ETSI ETSI. So in the ETSI ETSI specification, I don't know how many members they are there.
So let's break that up a little bit, because I'm not quite sure that that's what Jaime is asking. So there are two aspects, Jaime. So I think the question you're really asking is how many different organizations and members work on the specifications within the PEMEA Consortium themselves. So that's broken up into two sets. So there are those that have gone off and done work as part of an EC project. So in some cases, that's been 4 and 5 organizations with as many individuals. So certainly with chat, that was the case. With RTT, that was the case if we include the external reviews provided by our external expert. In terms of audio video, that's again been in the order of 3 to 4, and that will get some more reviewed still before it goes out the door. Discovery, there was quite a wide range that reviewed discovery to get to the bottom of that. We do have another specification which we haven't released yet, which has also had a number of reviews and a number of inputs, which is to do with non-number-based callback, which, as you can imagine, is not necessarily trivial. Because when we introduce non-number-based solutions and services, that taxes PSAPs, not just in terms of, oh, hey, I'll put in a fancy new zip or some other type of PSAP that can support non-number-based stuff. The real question is, can all of their underlying support systems support that? So we've got Pierre Corbon here from France, for example. He's going to be fully aware of the PEFLAU. If I started putting WhatsApp numbers into PEFLAU, it might not be very happy if there were a collision, for example. So those are the sorts of things that have to be considered when we start to look at non-number-based stuff. It's not just as simple as can my raw stuff deal with it? Can my underlying stuff deal with it? So when you ask about, who's looking at these specs, lots of, we've got multiple eyes across these specs, and then when we take them into ETSI, it's even an additional set of eyes that go over them. So they're not, and most of them have been implemented and refined as part of that implementation and fixed and altered where need be. So they're quite mature by the time they go in, and they're getting quite a lot of scrutiny. If you want to come in and give them extra scrutiny, more than happy for you to come in and do that.
Okay, let's try to do another question, that is the European Commission or any other reference organization recommended or pushing toward the use of PEMEA for 112? Have they made any statement regarding this? On this, I will say that the European Commission is not pushing for specific, let's say, technologies. That is also what the Delegated Act is saying about. It's describing packet switching, which is IP technology, meaning that for me as an academic, I will say that the technologies must be state-of-the-art, meaning that it must be technologies that will be able to further and future assist the emergency communication. So I think that the European Commission, putting also the Delegate Act and not mentioning any specific technologies, leaving, let's say, the part of the technology to be defined by the states, and just saying that it will be packet switching. I will say that following also that the PEMEA is being compliant with what we have shown today, I think that it's upon the PSAPs to decide for a next generation emergency technology like PEMEA and supporting their country. I will give also a bit to Urban, and then we will try also to reply to the rest of the technology or to the rest of the questions offline. Urban?
Yes. Sorry, which part you want me to address?
The part of technologies in European Commission and
Oh yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. There's basically they're not pushing towards anything. It has to be modern and state of the art, but it would be, I think, unfair to push towards anything. It would show commercial interest, and that's not what they should be doing.
Yes, and I agree with Pierre Coubertin that it must be technological neutral, but also we must, and I think that we have tried to do that today, to have an unbiased view of what the Delegated Act is saying about. I would like to thank everybody. Sorry for the questions we have not time to address. We will come back with an email for the specific questions. It was written down by Dimitra, and keep you informed by signing to the PEMEA Help website, and more webinars will follow. Thank you very much for today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.